What's happening, fam? L.A.R movement still moving. Book entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father. Amazon Kindle Create Space. The Lonely Classic Man. Um, I was thinking about this, and this might not go exactly where you think. In some ways, it might. I don't know, but lonely is in there. There are some guys who are quote unquote classic men who, in different ways, wind up being lonely. You know, and some of the I'm just gonna get into the reasons. Okay, one of the reasons is this. Um, Usually, classic men have to make themselves self-made men at times, not necessarily mentor people, not necessarily people believing in them, probably not necessarily having the best support system because they probably were classic kids too, you know, and because they were responsible and intelligent, and people, figured that they had it together mentally. They didn't have as much of a support system as kids who were screw ups, So as they grew up, they were lonely because while everybody else needed help, or they got none, so they fend for themselves. They are actually lone wolves by circumstance, more so than by choice. You know, So what winds up happening is you make those classic men, they are lonely, you know, and then you look at the community makes it worse and capitalizes on this because if you notice, guys who are screw ups, criminal minded, hypersexual, just guys who just all over the place. The community loves those guys. And those guys are detrimental and destructive to the community in itself. But the community itself turns right around and tells the quote unquote classic men, you need to fix this. Now, the problem with that is you got the people who destroyed it and the people who cheered on the destruction on the same team, burning down the house, but wanting somebody that they neglected, ignored, and exiled to come and fix it. And in any normal circumstance, you already know the answer would be no. You break it, you buy it. You break it, you fix it. You created a mess, you clean it up. That's your bed, you lay in it. If you want to make it, you got to make that bed. But our community doesn't do that. It's the classic man's fault that the drug dealer ruined a community. And it's the classic man's fault that you were partying with the drug dealer while after they ruined the community because they had money and it was fun to be around them. And it's the classic man's fault that when all of you did all of those things collectively and made the community worse by the way your families wound up being affected, you know, you won't address the people, which include yourself, to fix the situation because guess what? Deep down, you don't want to fix it. You just want the classic man to rebuild it so you can destroy it again. So thus this leaves that man lonely because he could see game. Um, the lonely classic man can be a guy who has learned that to not have faith in man, and because of being shunned to a degree, it also gave them the space and opportunity to concentrate on being the best human being that they can be and grow and evolve into something else. into becoming whatever they dreamed of them being. So, and by dabbling in and out of, trying to deal with family, trying to deal with friends, trying to deal with significant others, trying to deal with just the community at large, and dealing with the overwhelming fuckery, you wind up staying off to yourself. And what you keep seeing when you leave the people to their own vices and leave because they enjoy their vices, you leave them to that and you concentrate on you. You see you grow and evolve, and then but from dabbling back and forth, you see every time you involve yourself with these people, you always depreciate it because people take, and they never replenish anything. So you wind up, you know, stepping away from everybody. Like, you know what? I'd rather be by myself because I'm winning by myself. I'm losing with you. So that's another way, you could be a lonely classic man. You know, same thing with the relationships, right? You got lonely classic men out here who, in some ways, weren't good enough in perception, or in other everybody's mantra of what good and great was, and guys wind up being lonely because they weren't picked. You know, some guys wind up being lonely because they were picked, but they were really a second option, and they didn't. Their pride was like, nah, I can't do that. And the other thing is, some classic men wind up being lonely classic men in that scenario because you don't like the man. You like what the man can bring to the table. And unfortunately, I might talk about this in another video. Classic men have to deal with the idea that, you know, the guy that you like doesn't have to have resources. He doesn't have to have a degree. He doesn't have to look a certain way. He doesn't have to make a certain amount of money. But you're going to be down for that guy. But the classic man has to look a certain way, be a certain way, and be employed a certain way at a certain type of job, make a certain amount of income, and you don't necessarily like the classic man. You like the classic man's stability, and the classic man sees this because he sees the way you treat the people you actually like, and he sees the way you treat his resources, but and compares that to the way you treat him, which some guys just step away. I guess you would say MGTOW, ITMOR, you know, SYSBM, and that type of thing, because you wind up being a lonely classic black man out of the lonely classic man out of choice, because you realize nobody likes you for who you are. They like you for what you are. You know, so it gets interesting. And the same thing goes on, um, even with children and mentoring, because some classic men who have kids wind up being lonely because they may have provided a certain type of lifestyle for their children, and some of their children can't connect with the work that it took to get to where they are at now and what they consider normal. Just like they can't fathom the idea that how can I say this? That dad might not have come from dad may have come from humble beginnings, you know, because you're not in humble beginnings. You think that it's easy to accomplish what your classic man father accomplished, when it's not as easy as you think. They'll make it easier for you, but you wind up not necessarily taking the advice or having that work ethic, because you calling classic dad. He's always one phone call away, and he can always clean up the mess, right? So one you classic man winds up being lonely in that situation, because it's like, you know, once again you're a utility, and even if it's your child, it's like, you know, you need to get it together, you know. So I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Y'all take care on this one. Peace.